What do submarines, the sound of music, and Italian watches have in common? More than you probably ever think possible. Welcome to Italy. In my humble horologist opinion, if an Italian sports car should be red, then so should an Italian watch, don't you think? Regardless, the watch I want to show you today is one that I had my eye on for months and months. To be honest, when I first saw it, I felt feelings similar to when I first saw a red 1961 Ferrari GT or a red 71 Jaguar E-Type or even an early 1980s Phoebe Cates. Each had a beauty that took my breath away, and I wanted one. But since buying Phoebe Cates was certainly out of the question, it wasn't legal, still isn't, and I was too young to date. And since buying one of those cars would have required me to be like mega rich, none were to be mine. Except for the gorgeous red watch I am wearing today. Now, you should know by now, if you have watched a few of my videos, that I can't get into much detail about the timepiece itself until I share some foundational information surrounding it. And the first thing we need to cover is the name. Meccanica Venetiane Nereida. Meccanica Venetiane. So that's the name. And unless you can speak Italian and correct me, I'm going to go with the Google translation version. Meccanica Venetiane Nereida. What's important to know is that Meccanica Venetiane Nereida was the name of the company started in 2017 by two brothers, Alberto and Alessandro Morelli. Or Morelli, whatever. But later, sometime after this watch was made, this one, which was in 2021, they changed the name of the company to Venezianico. What does the new name mean? It's a combination of Veneziano, which is an adjective that means relating to Venice, and the Latin suffix eco, which means a way to be. So the previous name, which could be translated as Venetian Mechanics, is now Venezianico, which means, according to their website, a way of being that goes beyond the boundaries of the city of Venice and at the same time encompasses all the values that inspire us. Whatever. To me, Venetian Mechanics, or watches from Venice, is less confusing than a way of being international while maintaining Venetian values. Since digging into the history and reputation of the Italian watch brand from Venice, I've heard mixed reviews from authorized dealers and customers alike. Since I don't have all the details, I won't comment as to, what the complaints were, but I will say this. Do people complain about how Ferrari treats the average car enthusiast? Like, until you've earned the right to buy from us, no car for you. But do people still want Ferraris? Are they still willing to put up with the headaches involved? Absolutely. So why would I expect an Italian watch company to act any less Italian than Enzo Ferrari? I love this watch. Speaking of this watch, the whole reason we are here, of course, this model, a discontinued model line, I believe, is the Nereida. We see this printed on the dial above the 6 o'clock mark. It's also where we see some other Italian words which roughly tell us that we're holding a 200-meter water-resistant watch with an automatic movement. The Nereida series gets its name from a World War I Italian submarine of the same name. It was launched in 1913, after which not much is known of its service until August 5th, 1915. It was on that day when it was sunk by the U-5 the flagship submarine of the Austro-Hungarian Navy. Now, guys, it's at this point in our time together that you will hear something I would bet $1 to a donut that no other watch channel in the history of YouTube has ever shared. So, go get the kids, gather around your iPhone or Samsung or whatever. You can pause the video and start it up again when the whole crew's watching. I have an idea. Let's take a commercial break. Besides watches, I love coffee. But in order to buy coffee, buy watches, or even pay the postage when borrowing one to review, it takes, as the Italians would say, molte soldi denaro. You could help this channel buy more cups of coffee by generously donating through the use of this cool-looking QR code. Thank you. The man who was commanding the U-boat that sunk the Nereida wound up to be the most successful submarine commander in the Austro-Hungarian Navy. This man, a noble, would then later flee Austria when in 1939 he was offered a commission in the Nazi-controlled Navy. If you've ever seen the movie The Sound of Music, you'll know this commander as the father who snuck his family out of the country after singing Edelweiss. Yes, the commander of the U-5, which sunk the Nereida, was none other than George Ludwig Ritter von Trapp, as in the Von Trapp family singers. Like the late Paul Harvey used to say, now you know the rest of the story. Well, almost. Let's talk about the watch. This watch, made by a Venice-based Italian micro brand with a name most people cannot pronounce, the new or the old way to say it, is what I would label as an elegant dress diver. The Nereida is rated for a stated 20 atmospheres or 200 meters, but I think it is more useful for telling time in the light than checking for your oxygen in the deep. I say that because though the Nereida's applied indexes are painted with BGW9 Swiss Superluminova, I wouldn't bet my life on this watch while diving. What it does have will last a while, but what is there is not a lot. After just 15 minutes, as you can see, it gets pretty dim. Looking at the beautiful red dial and matching bezel, though, makes me feel like I am falling in love. It's just a gorgeous, deep red that is accented by golden-edged applied white indices and the unique applied gold cross that remains the logo of the company even today. The bezel is unidirectional with 120 solid, definable clicks and no discernible backplay at all. It also lines up beautifully with every second and half-second click. The only thing is that when I look really close, it doesn't seem like the lining up is perfect when the triangle is at the double baton 12. I can't tell which is off, the indexes, the point on the triangle, or my eyesight. The earlier version of the Meccanica Venetiane Nereida, which came out in 2017, featured an aluminum bezel insert. This 2021 version, however, incorporates this luscious, relatively hard BK7 optical grade glass. Personally, I like it much better than the aluminum, even more than ceramic. There's a depth to it. As a matter of fact, just look at where the dome sapphire crystal and the glass bezel meet. The surfaces are flush, but at certain angles, it looks like the crystal is sitting higher than the bezel. The 42 millimeter case with a lug to lug of just over 50 millimeters is standard 316L stainless, along with the Jubilee bracelet. But we do need to talk about this. The case is solid, has a beefy feel to it, and with the bracelet weighs in at 164 grams. It looks wonderful from the top. However, The finishing on the side of the case leaves much to be desired, if, that is, you have come to expect fine brushing or better. In other words, don't expect Zaratsu polishing. Expect something more like you'd get from a tool sharpener. Seriously, we've been spoiled by nearly every watch having reflective finishes, but this one breaks that rule and offers something a little different, like you have a polished case, but ours was hand chiseled from the sunken hull of a submarine, and just look at those lines. All straight, just like a submarine should be, except that submarine went straight down. Aside from that, the circular brushed finish on top is much finer than the brushing on the sides, and if you compare this model to the first ones, and then look at the newest watches from Venezianico, you'll see that the lugs went from a simple rounded look to one with more angles and edges. There are no chamfered edges on this model. That comes later. The domed sapphire crystal, which also has an anti-reflective coating, helps bring the total case thickness to that of right at 14.7 millimeters. There's a very nice screw-down crown with a raised logo, not an etched one. The crown is a good size one too, measuring at 7 millimeter. If I could complain about anything, it would not be the way this crown threads, however. It is very smooth and precise, and even gives a distinct little pop when it unthreads all the way. The bracelet is nice quality too. It starts out at a 22 millimeter lug width, where the solid end links exhibit no play whatsoever, then gradually tapers down to 18 millimeter at the clasp. The signed milled deployant clasp secures with a buttery little click. The case back is something new to me though. I've seen screw down case backs, and I've seen case backs that have screws that hold them down, but I've never seen a setup quite like this one. But of course I'm new to this, so pardon my ignorance. The etched case back, featuring a representation of the World War I sub the watch pays honor to, employs 6 screws to hold it down. I think it looks kind of cool myself. At the heart of the Nereida is an undecorated version of the caliber MV 145, a modified Seiko NH35, providing a 41-hour power reserve, which is pretty standard. Venezianico's website shows a photo of the movement, which is in their newest models, but I'm not going to pop the case back off this watch to look, not unless it's necessary. On the wrist, it fits perfectly. That's because, I guess, it came pre-sized from the watch forum friend I bought it from, Mr. Mike Rican Acosta. Mike Acosta. And I want to give a shout out to Mike. Not only did he give me a fair price on the watch, but when he shipped it to me, he included a plethora of goodies in the box. You won't get that from Amazon or Joma Shop. And not only that, he sent me a custom-made bead bracelet to match the watch, whether worn on the wrist with the watch, like he does, or on the other wrist, like I have done. I will include a link so you can check him out and say hello from me. Well, that's about it for this episode. Did you learn something? I bet you did. Didn't you? I know I did. When researching the Mechanica Venetiane Nereide, I did not receive any compensation from the Morelli brothers or Venezianico Watch Company in return for my adoration and amore. But go check out their newest catalog of watches. I'm sure there's something there that will strike your fancy. Honestly, if I had to choose which one of their newest watches I would want, it would be the Redentor 40 122150 I think that's a handsome looking watch, worthy of being a daily wearer. It's clean, simple, yet elegant, and it features a deep black dial underneath these dolphin hands. I know it's not red. But when you visit, let them know you heard about them here. And if you're not a fan of the sound of music, maybe they'd like to hear that too. Well, have a great week, be blessed, and remember, watches are replaceable, but time is not.